Turn me around, turn me around, turn me around.
Milwaukee's annual tribute is one of the largest such celebrations in the country. More than 100 students were honored for expressing this year's theme in art, writing, speaking, and other areas of achievement.
When we think of the man we are honoring today, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., we remember his lifelong struggle for justice and his unswerving commitment to peace and nonviolence.
Each year, I'm impressed by the creativity, insight, and thought expressed in the art of the young people. Their artwork focuses on education, elimination of violence, friendship, and racial harmony. Through their art, the students challenge each of us not only to recognize that it's always time to do right, but also to take the time to do right and work together for a future that's based on fairness and justice.
The ability to communicate effectively, orally as well as in writing, will be critical to their future success in school and in the workplace. Dr. King gave breath to justice and equality for humankind. His views have been reflected in the numerous speeches of our young people that were judged in this year's competition. They set a tone that we must heed.
Dr. King was a good man. He wanted black and white people to come together in unity. The time is always right to do right.
And they tried to knock him down, but they couldn't. You know why? Because he kept his faith. He kept his head up to the sky. He didn't go by man's words. And like Dr. King said, you hear him saying it too, right? The time is always right to do right.
There are always ways to do right, like by helping someone in need, giving ear to someone's problem, and giving them the right advice. We can also do right by providing for the homeless and volunteering our time to help children in need of someone to care for them. The time is always right to do right, and that time should be right now.
I'm up here today because I'm a leader behind King. I'm doing all I can to turn his dreams into realities because I know the time is always right to do right. The great thing in this world is not so much where we are, but in what direction we are moving. Thank you.
Who are you? And what do you stand for? When the time for doing right challenges you, will you accept or will you withdraw to the mucks of indecisiveness? Doing right is not easy. It requires discipline and determination.
He knew the power of both the spoken word and the written word. Martin Luther King Jr. Writing Contest embraces the power of the written word. It's a way to honor one of our country's greatest leaders and celebrate the future leaders in the city of Milwaukee. Our hope in presenting this contest was to encourage students to become familiar with Dr. King's life and values, while at the same time promoting his beliefs.
Like Dr. King, we believe the world will be improved through education, equal opportunity, as well as brotherhood. The Youth Achievement Awards represent still another way to emphasize education as a means to further positive change in the lives of our young people and our community. By focusing attention on the courage, the scholastic achievement, and the personal commitment of area youth, we're telling young people that we believe in them and we encourage their success.
These 32 students here this afternoon really represent the thousands of young people throughout our community who are doing well in school, who are studying hard, and who are hoping to further their education beyond high school. But we know many of them may not realize their dream if not for a scholarship. These scholarships open the door of opportunity for our students. The power of a scholarship in the hands of a deserving, talented young person cannot be overstated.
And the celebration included a video which featured Dr. King and others involved in his visit to Milwaukee 34 years ago.
He was invited and accepted an offer to visit Milwaukee, Wisconsin, to speak at a public rally in 1964. Milwaukee was a very different city than today. It had lines of segregation, although unseen, very apparent to its citizens who lived within them. But before a crowd of Milwaukee citizens, represented by all races, religious and social economic backgrounds, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. spoke of the time always being right to do right.
And interestingly enough, a part of his message was encouraging people in Milwaukee to do something about the things that they felt affected them in a negative way. And so that was encouraging.
But I think it was Martin Luther King's appearance to show the entire community how we could all hold hands together and do the right thing for the community.
The problems are still here in employment and de facto segregation in the schools and, of course, in housing. This is a threefold problem, and it's very difficult for me to say how Milwaukee stands over against other cities in this area. The only thing I can say is that Milwaukee has some real problems to deal with, and I think all people of concern and goodwill will face it honestly and deal with it forthrightly.
The answer to our riddle is the City of Milwaukee Bookmobile, hitting the road to give those unable to reach a library access to the books they want to read. On a typical Tuesday afternoon in February, the Bookmobile stopped at 91st and Allen. Its steadiest customers are small children and senior citizens.
A lot of children come on the stop. It's close to their home. We stop at 36 stops throughout the city. Senior citizens, a lot of people without cars that don't have a library real close to them. People are real loyal. They know their stop. Every 3 weeks when we go there, they're there at their stop. Pretty much a lot of the faces are regular week after week. It is very important to the city. Basically, our circulation is as high as some of the Milwaukee Public Library branches.
Shelves built into both sides of the Bookmobile interior hold about 3,000 items, from Danielle Steele to Dr. Seuss, from videotapes to books with large type. Also called the Readmobile, this library on wheels circulated more than 74,000 items in 1997. A librarian at the entrance collects returns and issues cards. At the opposite end, a library driver does double duty at the checkout. Like branch libraries, the Bookmobile attempts to meet the needs of its customers.
Basically, we're trying to respond to what we know the public is going to need. We're trying to, with all the space we have, basically bring everything that we can imagine that people will need. Also, we do take requests, so for people who are regulars, we'll take their requests. We come to every stop in a 3-week rotation, so if someone needs something, we don't have it on board, we'll try to bring it, the next time we come out, and people know, most of the people know about that and know they can ask for something special if we don't have it on board.
The Bookmobile is not the only mobile service in the operation. A smaller book van visits nursing homes and 11 senior housing complexes on a 3-week cycle. Librarians try to keep in tune with what the residents want, bringing a wide variety of items with as many topics as possible. The residents look forward to the stops.
Oh, I think it's just a wonderful idea, because so many of us can't get out, a lot of us are handicapped and what have you. Because taking for instance myself, in a few weeks I'll be having knee surgery, so we need things like this to do, and I think it's really a great service, to have the books and the tapes coming in and what have you. Something to keep us occupied.
It's really been good. they've come in, rain or come shine, because we've had a little bit of a snowstorm, and they were here right on time, and they had all the books that requests. They take requests for those that cannot go out into the weather for the winter. I can't get around anymore like I used to, and that's been a good help to keep me occupied and busy and reading. Look forward to having them come out.
The small van also stops at some 3 dozen daycare centers in Milwaukee, dropping off tubs of books and other materials. Variety is a key once again, and daycare staff often ask for particular items that meet the needs of the children in their particular centers.
Well, it comes once a week, and we're thrilled to be a participant in this program. The library is a tremendous community resource, and it's just marvelous that they bring these right inside our school for our students to enjoy. Obviously, they're excited when we get the new deliveries, and it keeps reading fresh and interesting to them, which is exactly what a school would hope for. It just opens children to so many new opportunities, and is such a mind-expanding sort of activity that we're thrilled when children connect with that at an early age, as our students do here, and this program just fuels their interest in reading and keeps it interesting, and will hopefully nurture a lifelong love of reading.
The mobile services operation also goes beyond the bookmobile and van to a very personal service called Book Buddy for the homebound.
If they are homebound but still, are interested in using library services, with the help of a book buddy, they can have their order pulled and ready for pickup at whatever Milwaukee Public Library is convenient for their book buddy. So basically, they're telling us what they want, and then we get it all ready and have it ready for their book buddy to pick up. And their book buddy, when their books are due, picks up their books, drops off the new books. So it's a nice arrangement.
Changes in demographics and lifestyles prompted a decline in bookmobile services here and elsewhere. Milwaukee had 3 in the 1960s that made stops throughout the area. The one that remains in Milwaukee is a welcome visitor for those who rely on it.
People are very enthusiastic. They're very happy to see us, and they're very happy to see what we have on board. And I think people, they're in the routine. They're expecting the bookmobile. For the few times we've had either snow emergencies or problems with our bookmobile, people call, where were you, what happened?
You'll find many mementos of the department's history on display at the Safety Academy. As unofficial historian, Captain Jeff Burke has had a lot to do with the exhibit.
I felt a long time ago when I was a young guy in a job that there definitely was a need for somebody to address the gathering and safeguarding and the proliferation of historical material as it relates to this department.
Captain Burke says the Fire Historical Society and other firefighters also deserve credit for helping preserve these reminders of the past, which tell the story from hand-drawn pumps to horses to diesel.
Items that were emblematic of the fire service, specifically this fire service in the city of Milwaukee, we would be looking at things like the badge collection. Of most interest in the badge collection probably is the fact that prior to the 1870s or 1880s, a captain was not called a captain was a foreman. I find one of the things of most interest is a wood pattern display down here, which plays beautifully into the history of our department and how we may be one of the only departments in the country that built our own apparatus from scratch.
A collection of tools shows many are similar to equipment still in use today and explains the origins of the hook and ladder truck.
Ladders obviously were used to ladder buildings, make rescues, do all kinds of things, ingress, egress, but the hooks were used to pull the buildings down. So A, they didn't fall down on top of somebody later, or B, they didn't the fire was not able to communicate to another building. Pike poles and axes are two tools that are emblematic of the fire service, truly emblematic, even shown in the shoulder patches in many cases, that crossed pike poles or crossed axes. So axes and pike poles are still used today, probably the two most used tools besides a self-contained breathing apparatus in interior firefighting.
A display of breathing apparatus shows how much that protection has changed over the years and raises questions about what might have been done before they existed.
In the old days, the old-timers had these giganzo mustaches, in some cases beards and goatees that were fairly long, and they supposedly shoved them in their mouth and breathed through them while they went into a smoky atmosphere. And there's no one around to tell us whether that really happened or not, so we really don't know, but it's a great urban legend, if nothing else. Probably the most recognizable and definitive symbol of the fire service. It is the one thing that even the silhouette of something like that reminds virtually everyone of fireman, and it's always a fireman's hat. Actually, it's a helmet.
The Fire Historical Society has acquired the old firehouse at 16th and Oklahoma, and renovations are underway for a museum, a place to recreate the look of a working firehouse of the 1930s. Off-duty firefighters are among those doing the work.
It's very gratifying to see the firefighters come forward, because that's, after all, what this is all about.
Helping create the image will be one of 6 ladder trucks built by the Milwaukee department. And this engine, one of 12 built here, also from the 1930s, now housed on the far northwest side.
It has a lot of potential for the future, both for the goals of the organization and to finally show that, hey, this city is rich in fire history, and we hold some things that have been preserved that speak to the uniqueness of a department. It's very exciting to finally have a project like this come to fruition.
If you'd like to contribute to help the Fire Historical Society fund the museum, or for information on the display, call 286-8970.
I think it's really important that the public understand that there is this entity out there of public service that has sacrificed a lot for a long time, and we don't have to suffer like they suffered. But I don't want people to forget that they did suffer, because that is all part of it. And they accomplished an incredible amount. They did it without the help of the kind of technology we have today. And all those things play into why these kinds of things should be brought out.
As you may remember, a memorial to the 106 Milwaukee firefighters who lost their lives in the line of duty is in a third location. The Fallen Firefighter Memorial is located at Department Headquarters at 7th and Wells. Lead poisoning is caused by lead dust in a child's everyday environment, especially in pre-1950 housing. It becomes dangerous when it chips, flakes, or is ground into dust, and the toddler puts the chips or lead dust-covered fingers into the mouth. Over 6,000 Milwaukee children were identified in 1996 with lead levels, which can cause health risks.
Well, lead poisoning is a disease, and lead has no physical value to children or adults, but it is especially harmful to children whose brains and nervous systems are developing. In Milwaukee, about 26%, 1 out of 4 children who are tested are found to have lead levels that can result in adverse effects, and that's about 5 or 6 times the national average.
Lead reduction work involves correcting lead-based paint surfaces which are in disrepair. Typical work includes repair of windows, porches, and other deteriorating painted surfaces.
The city of Milwaukee is doing an incredible job in the fight against lead poisoning. In fact, we are recognized as a national leader in terms of our aggressive actions. Our program is a combination of funding. The city of Milwaukee itself provides the basic and the foundation for the rest of the grant money that comes in. But not only do we follow up on children that we know are poisoned, but now we're trying to get ahead of the problem and to identify and remediate sources of lead-based paint in low-income housing stock.
Windows painted with lead have been found to be the greatest contributor to lead dust in the homes and the focus of the city's abatement efforts. The first step is to find out if you have a problem.
We take dust wipes, preliminary dust wipes, to see if there's any lead dust in the property. We will then take our XRF machine, it's X-ray fluorescence machine, and that checks to see if there's any lead in the different substrates. And usually it's the windows where we find most of the problems. When you open up the windows, the wells are usually full of paint chips, deterioration of the sashes and the window jambs. It's pretty obvious where you're going to find the lead. After we do our survey, we write up a scope of work, and that is generally submitted to go out to bid. Now this is for the HUD grant. For other base inspector, they would be writing orders and serving orders to the property owner.
Contractors remove window and sash, plane, prime, and paint them before reinstallation.
When they're returned to the sashes, they put in sash tracks, which are vinyl or aluminum liners that go up the length of the window, so that when the window is raised, it no longer is creating any dust. That's the main problem, is the lead dust that's created from the friction of the window going up and down in the tracks. So we're essentially removing all of the paint from the sashes, and we're covering the jam liners. The blind stops are scraped and painted, and the well, which is the trough in between the interior sill and the storm, that's also wrapped. It's covered in aluminum so that it's a surface that's easily cleanable.
We currently have about $3 million from the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development, and this money is targeted to low-income housing, homes where paint might be in deteriorated condition. Either owner-occupants or rental owners are available for the money, and all they have to do is to be up to date on their taxes and to have no outstanding building code violations, and they have to voluntarily come in. Low-income homeowners can have 100% of the lead hazard reduction funded by the city through the federal grant, and we will cover 50% of the cost for rental owners.
While windows of aging homes have been found to have a greater concentration of lead paint particles and contaminated dust than walls and doors, repairing them, while the most cost-effective procedure, may not take care of the entire problem.
Well, it depends on if there's any other problems in the home. If you've got lead paint in the walls and the ceilings and it's cracked and has holes, then we'd address that also. But generally we're finding that the windows are the biggest cause, what we believe to be the biggest cause of lead exposure to children, especially in the city of Milwaukee.
The city uses about 15 contractors for lead abatement and removal, including the Milwaukee Community Service Corps.
Well, we feel very strongly about adding value back to the communities most affected by lead poisoning. Our relationship with Community Service Corps allows the Service Corps to recruit and train at-risk youth and provide GED opportunities, training, and eventually employment opportunities. So it's been a fabulous collaboration because we've not only been able to create lead-safe housing, but also to create employment and job opportunities.
If resources are available, the health department will do lead assessments for any homeowners who request them, but the emphasis will continue to be on those with low incomes. With written orders to correct a problem and voluntary compliance, several thousand homes have been corrected in the last few years, but many more remain.
The city probably has about 20,000 high-risk units, and in addition to remediating lead hazards in homes where we know children are poisoned, we also want to get the news out to rental owners, investment property owners, homeowners who may have lead hazards, especially at their windows, so we can get ahead of the problem and make sure that we remediate those hazards before children are poisoned and experience the devastating effects of lead.
Officials say we'll never break the cycle of lead poisoning of children that move in and out of the city's older homes, unless we go after the root cause, deteriorated lead paint.